Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. I have today with me Garrett Fahrbach with Awesome Inc. out of Lexington, Kentucky. Garrett, thank you so much for being here with me today on the channel.
Absolutely, D. It's probably been a decade plus that we've known each other, so it's cool that we're doing something in the professional world together.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've been with Awesome Inc. several years. Tell the audience a little bit about how long you've been with Awesome Inc., what Awesome Inc. is, what the
Sure.
company does, kind of what's the story.
So Daniel and I, we have a background. We both were at the University of Kentucky together. We were a part of a group called Christian Student Fellowship, and that is actually the introduction that got me to Awesome Inc. So I've been with Awesome since June of 2018, so approaching 8 years, which is kind of crazy to realize that. And the very abridged version is a buddy that Daniel and I both knew from college and the young adult era of our early 20s. He left that ministry, went to be on the Awesome Inc. team, didn't talk with him for probably a year and a half, something like that. Reconnected at a career fair at UK in the spring of 2018, and he introduced me to our CEO at this career fair. Again, graduating college, I'm the youngest in my family. My brother's done very well in the corporate world as a software engineer. My mom's very type A as well, so they were both like, you need to be out in front of this job thing. So I've watched my brother go and get one job offer and leverage it, with multiple companies and trying to figure out how do I do this as I'm finishing school. So I meet this guy, my CEO, Brian, and my good friend, Brian Rainey, and he kind of put things in a weird perspective for me because he met me and said, "Oh, Keith knows you. You must be a funny guy, cool guy. How can I help you?" And I thought that was very interesting. Why would this guy who's at a career fair looking for people to, be an intern or a junior employee at most ask how he could help me? So he asked that question. I jumped right at the bait and I said, great. I've watched my brother, who's a software engineer, go get one offer, leverage it with all these companies. I'm 22, man. Who's going to take me seriously? How do I put myself in that same kind of spot? So Brian and I, over the course of, it would have been probably 3-ish months or so, just built a friendship, built a relationship, and we emailed regularly a couple times a week, met up once a month or so in person. And just like a coach would do with one of his players, he gave me a suggestion and just paid attention to how fast I turned around and would accomplish that thing. So to wrap this up, put a bow on it, I got rejected from a couple job offers. I thought I was moving back home to Louisville, Kentucky. The day I got told no from the leading job I thought I was a shoo-in for, Ryan shot me an email and pretty much gave me a job that I never applied for. So it was just cool to see that this relationship was what led to me spending the next 8 years and really almost all of my 20s as a man, becoming a young adult to a manhood, at this organization, Awesome Inc. So that's a little background. Then Awesome Inc. is our umbrella term. Here's our logo, by the way. Or just for you, man. Awesome Inc. is our umbrella term, and we are an entrepreneur and technology support organization. And so we have a variation of different entities. Again, Awesome Inc. is our umbrella term. We have a couple for-profit arms of what we do, and then the bulk of the work that most people would know us and interact with us for is going to fall in the nonprofit realms. Real quickly, some is about the education and creation of both technology and entrepreneurship. That is definitely the LinkedIn buzzwords, and I always say that. So the way that we operate, we have a software firm called Apex Software. They are for profit, and they are a sister company founded by a couple of the same guys as Awesome. And then we have a different suite of coding schools. So we have an entity called Awesome Inc. U. And again, I went to University of Kentucky. I did not get a major, but I got a minor degree in computer science. With that entity of what we do, we helped people from, you name the background, transition from whatever they were doing professionally to becoming an entry-level software engineer and really changing the outcome of their life and their professional skill set. And that was a really cool program. We have since sunsetted the adult boot camp. That was what we called it, a boot camp. We've sunsetted that program just from post-COVID and AI rolling out, and just the need drastically changed. Maybe one day it'll come back in a different facet, but it was a really cool operation to see about, I think it was maybe close to 200 or somewhere around the 200 adult ballpark of a number of people whose lives were changed for the betterment, which was really cool. But then we teach a bunch of kiddos introductory skill sets to coding, all that stuff. Then we have our Awesome Inc. co-working space in downtown Lexington, 18,000 square feet of office, event, rental space, you name it. We have remote workers, startup founders, young entrepreneurs. We have a couple of VCs that work in and out of there. So there's always something going on. And it's just really cool to see that entrepreneurs And entrepreneurship is a very lonely field. So just bringing a lot of like-minded people together to really foster a sense of community is a really special thing. And then the last for-profit entity is a venture capital arm called the Awesome Fund that launched in August of 2020. It's a $5 million fund. And I think currently we're here in May 2026. I think the portfolio is around 12 or 13 companies, and they've invested, I think, close to 2.5 million. So right about the halfway amount of our portfolio. And then I can talk on and on, but I'll be concise here. And then switching over to the nonprofit arm of what we do. Everything is housed in our DBA Awesome Center for Entrepreneurship. And that's where we have a bunch of different intake opportunities. But a lot of people know Awesome Inc. we have an event called Summer Retreat, where we get a bunch of entrepreneurs and business mentors and investors together to literally have adult summer camp. It's great. That helps with some of the on-ramping for an event that I know you've been to a couple of times, Daniel, called Five Across. We say it's like if Shark Tank and a high school pep rally threw a party together. That's what it is. It's an early stage pitch competition for entrepreneurs all across Kentucky to share their idea with the local community and get some encouragement along the way, because pitch competitions and asking for investment can be a very stale and cold environment. And so we want to flip it on its head and make these entrepreneurs feel empowered and encouraged. And frankly, it's just a really fun event. And then that will feed into the program I'm over, and we're almost done, by the way. But that will feed into the program I'm over called the Fellowship, and that's the name of our startup accelerator. So for most people, if they've never heard of that term, there are a bunch of very well-known, world-renowned programs, Y Combinator, Techstars, amongst a bunch of others, that these programs their goal is to help scale tech startups and entrepreneurs grow and thrive. So we have one that is based here in Lexington. We work with companies all across the state. And so for me, I get to be this fun, weird conglomerate role of cheerleader, full-time connector, unpaid team member, consultant. I mean, again, it's just this really cool role that it's very relational. And that's the really fun thing of helping these founders build relationships with our organization and then helping them scale their businesses probably more in about 12 months than they might do in a 2 to 5 year time frame on their own without help and resources. So it's a really cool front row seat, because that program would then feed into our venture capital fund. And at the very end of our pipeline, we have something called the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame, which is exactly as it sounds. It's a really cool ceremony and prestigious award that we get to induct a number of Kentucky's biggest and baddest, most accomplished entrepreneurs for what they've built in Kentucky, or folks that have really strong ties to Kentucky as well. So
yeah, Awesome does a lot of different things and makes a big impact in Central Kentucky, and I'm sure across the U.S. I met Brian, the CEO of Awesome Inc., almost 20 years ago now, right as he was starting his entrepreneurial journey.
Okay.
It was prior to me going to the Navy and everything else, but it's amazing what it's grown into today and all the different things that it's doing for entrepreneurs to make an impact. What would you say today is the bread and butter or the core focus, or maybe 2 or 3 things of all the things that Awesome Inc. does now going forward, almost 20 years later since it started? What's the core focus now for the next 1 to 5 years, let's say, for Awesome Inc.?
Good question. The core focus, I would say, has remained the same, which is helping entrepreneurs in Kentucky. If we were to pull a random group from, 5 or 10 different states, and we said, what do you think about Kentucky? Unanimously, maybe not in this order, it'd be basketball, urban. Again, we just had the Kentucky Derby, but the Derby, and then maybe the barefoot hillbilly notion might be something that comes into play. And so those are things that people know Kentucky for. What we are trying to work towards is helping Kentucky be on the map for more than maybe those older stereotypical things. And there's a lot of innovation in Kentucky. Louisville, for example, our biggest city, there's a ton of healthcare related companies that have either started or have been really involved and have strong ties to that city. And so for us, we want to help the economy thrive and really drive forward based on taking risks, starting businesses. There's a lot more that's coming from Kentucky in that vein. Now, over the next 1 to 5 years, we've had a lot of headway with our entrepreneur pitch competition, Five Across. Last year, we almost sold out the Kentucky Theater, one of the larger venues in our city. Seats like 810 or 11 or something like that. And we had over 750 attendees. We were working on getting some really well-known, high-caliber entrepreneurs to be, in attendance, and didn't work out, but at least we started some warm relationships. And the goal is just to strengthen that program and help legitimize it across our state. So continuing to grow that program and its audience with some larger national partners is on the radar. And then from what I've been doing, and then just the backbone of our work, it's again assisting entrepreneurs. The fellowship, the name of our startup accelerator, that's our flagship program. And then the goal is to have companies in 5 across get fed into what is the fellowship, pour gasoline on the fire, so to speak. Give these companies with resources and continue growing their offerings or growing our offerings to help assist these companies, and then feed them on to the venture capital fund. And then hopefully down the road, as VCs, you start one smaller fund with the hopes to have a larger fund in the future, but it will be to grow opportunities to invest back into companies in our region. And then for us, we want to help take companies from idea stage all the way to be the next Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame inductee. So really a lot of it has come down to refining our pipeline of how we assist startups and really being, I'll say wise, like just very, very wise and intentional with how we assist folks.
The startups that you all have worked with, that you've witnessed,
Mhm.
that have gone on to be more successful, or at least a sustainable business at the very least.
Yeah.
What are some common denominators that you've seen in those entrepreneurs?
What I've seen people do prior to maybe getting involved with our organization. So prior to maybe a company coming to Awesome Inc., it's mainly been someone that had really sound experience or a really strong background in whatever their industry was. They identified an actual problem, and while they were working a full-time job or they were a consultant, they realized a number of people I'm working with are coming across, in sales or whatever, and whatever their role was. They realized there's a huge problem. I've done this for a long enough time that actually I could probably start my own business, and I would have customers, or I would have enough experience to go and build something that solves this. And so really good entrepreneurs, they identify a problem before their solution. Whereas sometimes people who might be the wantrepreneur, and I don't say that negatively by any means, just someone who I want to work for myself. They might try to come up with some cool gadget or an app without ever identifying if there's a need for it. So again, the first part would be folks that have identified a problem, they have sound experience, and then they've just done enough work on their own to actually see, is there a market? Do I have a product? Is there a fit? And then when they come to us, we get to, be like a handyman and just kind of fine tune, tweak some, tighten some stuff up here and there. Because at the end of the day, the Awesome team, our goal is not to tell a startup how to run their business. We are not that entrepreneur. I don't need to try and fix what they're doing. My goal is to assist. And I like saying, like, be a hot button detector. Hey, as the founder, why are you doing this? What was your thought process with this? I like to poke holes in things, and then hopefully help them identify and detach the emotional aspect of entrepreneur, I'm building my baby, to here's who I am as a founder, as a person. Here's what I'm building, and be a bit more objective in how they're viewing things. Now, second part, when again companies get into Awesome Inc., a lot of it is, we're all adults. We all have 24 hours in a day. My role isn't to handhold people. It's to go and spend my time where it's needed, where I'm appreciated. So I would say for the founders that have gotten the most, they are the ones that probably have either had the most thoughtful questions, or they've been most intentional with actually leveraging and building the relationships. And what I have seen the most often is the entrepreneurs that, have gone through other programs and ours as well. When they don't communicate, when they don't ask for help, when they don't say, here's my vulnerabilities, like, here's what I'm struggling, I could use some assistance, I'm not going to know how to help or try to make a connection to the right person that can help, or, offer the right resource if I don't know what's going on. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing, is when folks have come through and they've done really, really well, we have the relationships. We have our standard meeting to go over metrics and KPIs, but then they're ones that can text me, hey, I'm about to go to this investor event. Do you know so-and-so? Or I'm about to make a hire with this kind of background. What kind of questions or what resources do I need? And cool, we're having an ongoing dialogue.
That's a lot to unpack. That's really cool.
Definitely is.
So can you give me some examples of maybe one or two companies that Awesome Inc. has worked with that has gone on to be quite successful? Like, what are those companies? What is the name of those companies? What do they do?
Yeah. For some of the portfolio companies, I will say that there are ones that have been way more successful because they've been around longer prior to my time. So a couple companies off the cuff, some that went through Awesome Inc. in the early years. 2013, 14, 15, 16, before I was even out of college. Company called Cloverleaf up in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area. They'd be worth checking out. They do a lot with the inner workings of teams, helping HR, offer a lot of creative solutions. If you're the CEO and you have like a certain dominant, maybe more choleric personality and I'm your whatever role, and I'm a bit more reserved, shy, much maybe more a phlegmatic personality. Again, those are temperaments. They're going to help you know, hey, you need to talk to Garrett this way because he's wired in XYZ facet, or like this is his Enneagram, his Myers-Briggs, and that's just scratching the surface. But they help inner workings of teams, and it's pretty cool, like the software and the products that they have built. But they're one they've done very, very well. I think last year, maybe the year prior, they raised like $7 million in a Series A round or something, or seed round. And they've created a lot of jobs. Forecaster based out of Louisville. They do financial modeling. Another company called Virtual Peaker. They were again around. They're based out of Louisville before I was ever around, and they're just on the grow. But they're I believe in the energy space. Don't hold me on that standard because I'm trying to remember them. But Bill Burke is their CEO, and he's just a sharp businessman. Companies that I've seen since I've been awesome. One of my favorite stories, this company got acquired last year, is a company called OmniLife, and I forget who acquired them, but they had an exit, which is great. These guys founded a company all around the organ transplantation process. Didn't know that was a thing. But quick recap is one of the co-founders, he was a former Iowa football player, and at the University of Iowa, got in a bad car wreck, lost use of, I believe, one of his arms because of some nerve damage. Other co-founder had an aunt that had some pretty severe health issues, needed an organ transplant, and like the communication was whack. So these guys started a business and realized, I think the stat was 53% of organ donors never, or organ recipients never get the organ from said donor. Like there's a communication somewhere in the breakdown, which seems like it'd be pretty straightforward. So these guys built a SaaS platform to help with that process. Another one of my favorites right now is one of my friends. Her name is Allie Trutman, based out of Louisville. She's the definition of spunk, man. She's wonderful. She built a company around the incontinence health issue that goes on in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Her grandmother passed away from this health-related issue. Didn't know that was a thing. And so she's built both a physical device and software that's alerts a nurse that says, hey, patient in room B just had an accident, go change the sheets immediately. So it would identify their iPad or their tablet based on whatever the mattress pad or mattress topper, I forget what the device specifically is, but whenever it, notices that the environment has changed, let's just say it that way. And so she's got to meet some of the folks that have built massive healthcare companies across Kentucky. Randy Bufford, Hall of Famer with Trilogy Health Services, Joe Steyer with Signature Healthcare, a bunch of guys. And she pitched at her event. Five Across won the big one for the year a couple years ago. I received investment from someone who was in the crowd from the Walton family, or tied to the Walton family, so the folks that started Walmart. And she has just done very, very well. She's on the grow right now. And I could go on some more companies, but those are a couple of my favorite stories because it was either A, I didn't know that problem existed, or B, those entrepreneurs had very strong ties to personal tragedies in their lives. And they leaned in and found a problem. There actually was a need for this, and they built very creative solutions.
Within Awesome Inc., within the company itself and the various entities, for the leadership team, what have you observed sets it apart that allows or enables Awesome Inc. to be so effective and efficient and do all these things and not just have to focus on one thing? Like at its core, why and how does Awesome Inc., why are they able to be so impactful? I guess, like, what are those traits that the leadership team has, the management style, the way the company's run? What does that look like?
Good question, because that gets to the heart of why we do what we do. A couple of things come to mind with that. When the guys started Awesome Inc. back in 2009, there was a certain, I'll just say a certain influence where they got a bunch of rules for doing life and business together. And they made this like funny spreadsheet that touched the friendship aspect, the business aspect, like being goofy guys. But at the core of it, they found a couple of key principles or pillars or frameworks, whatever term you want to use, for how we're going to operate. So for what we do, whether it's a new team hire, new program, if we sunset something, they're going to come for the core values: be good, be excellent, be a friend, and be you. And so that's how we try to operate. That rolls into the relational component. So at the core of how Awesome Inc. started, Brian Rainey, Luke Murray, Nick Such, and one other guy. Oh no, sorry. Brian Rainey, Luke Such, Justin Rainey, and Matt Smith, the guys started Apex. They started a company at UK called bookexchange.com. Just the quick synopsis there. It was to do like buy and resell used textbooks. They built an audience, had some pretty cool stats back in the early 2000s when Facebook was around. Tried to sell it to Facebook. The guy they met who started Mint.com, Noah Kagan, was like, That's funny because I started that same business. You guys are worth nothing. No, they did a lot of activity and did not get the result they wanted. And that led to the creation of Apex Software. And they realized that all of our previous experience is helping prepare us for the next thing. And when they were building the first business, they realized they did not have a mentor. They didn't have investors. There was just a lot of lack in the resources and both human capital and capital readily available. So when they got their software firm off the ground, they realized actually, cool, we're going to build this company, but we want to start the thing that's going to help the next us or the next group of us. Is that what us is? Like the next group of us, the next entrepreneurs. We want to help people like us at 23 that had no idea what we're doing and have resources at the ready. So that's where Awesome came from. Over the years, we tried a lot of things, and, had to kill things that didn't work. Part of taking risk and starting businesses is you got to do things and you got to suck. You got to suck for a while until you get good at something. And for us, from 2009 to 2013, we had only, I think, a few things that actually stuck. Five Across, our pitch competition being one of them. And over the years, once something gained legs, we just kept doing more of that. So Five Across, the next year was our boot camp. We did that for about a decade. Then our fellowship program, still been doing that for, I think, when 26, about 13 years. Hall of Fame 2009 or 2009, 2010 era. It's, I would say it's both good and bad. We have a lot of autonomy. So when people lack clarity, it can be often what makes things tough. But when you are able to lean in and you have a better, more crisp idea of what you're trying to accomplish, a little more vision at the ready, it's easier to make decisions and strike because you know the direction you're heading towards. Great example is last year, Ryan, our CEO, he called a charge for 2025, 7.5, 8-month campaign of getting people in this room, building the audience. We shot a TV episode to say, hey, is there potential here to maybe make a local version of Startup that the news picks up? Just trying to go forward with ideas. But there was a lot of us on the team that were very creative with our marketing. One of my colleagues, Cam Sloss, and I, full steam ahead trying to get the folks from Shark Tank to be engaged. And we had conversations with a couple of them and we're entertaining them. And there were some really cool connections that we were able to make. And the fact that we got Awesome Inc., a very small Kentucky entity in front of some of the largest entrepreneurs in the world was just a really cool milestone that we were able to do it. But that was because we had vision for months. And when, when there's vision present, it is very helpful to act and want to be autonomous, want to be creative. But without vision, man will perish, and we know where that comes from. So even in the business sense, I will say the autonomy is both a blessing and can be a curse. But with Awesome, that's been one of the reasons that our team has been able to do what it has done, because we're pretty slow and pretty intricate when we're going to hire, because we're looking for both relational fit, culture fit, and then is this potential person that we would add onto our team or make a role for? Do they seem like fertile ground where they could grow and gain experience and add a lot of value? And again, a lot of it just comes down to the people we work with. My last comment here is especially with the external clients and entrepreneurs that we work with, we try to be more relational first with them and relational focused. Just a lot of the world, people are pursuing profit versus relationship. And obviously you start a business to make money. We know that. But a lot of times people need belief and encouragement and a friend to come alongside them, and not to have this give me first attitude, then I'll help you. So we try to be give first and just be giving and sowing seeds before we ask for things or, try to look for profit. And it's just been cool to see that over the years, a lot of people have found both like a kind of a home or, home away from home, and just community with folks that are like-minded in that vein. So
some of the big takeaways from this conversation, some themes that I always hear is, finding a problem as an entrepreneur. You identify a problem and you solve it. As an owner, as a leader, you have to care about people. Profits and revenue are the byproduct of doing the right things, of identifying the problem and having a good solution for that problem. And it requires people. You're impacting people as your customers, of course, but also your staff. I think too many business owners don't understand that if you have employees, they are your company's biggest, most important asset. And you have to take care of people. At the end of the day, business is about people, not just money. Money's the byproduct. That's my firm belief. And I think if you're not taking care of your people, and I love that you gave that example that before Brian ever hired you, just when he met you for the first time, his mindset is, how can I help you? How can I serve you? As a CEO of a company that when you were hired was already successful, took his time to, have that posture, that mindset toward you, someone that wasn't even working for him, how much more, I'm sure since you've been with him, has he continued to have that mindset.
Hmm.
I love that. That's a great example. Yeah. Well, thank you, Garrett, so much for being here on the channel today. You have any last thoughts to leave the audience with?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Yeah, use Daniel for his services. How about that? So we'll say that, and then
Thank you.
for anybody that is listening in, and if you are an entrepreneur or you have an idea to potentially start a business, if you're local to the state of Kentucky, especially if you're local, I would encourage you to check out any one of the Kentucky Innovation Hubs, especially Awesome Inc. Definitely a biased opinion there. You can go to our website, awesomeinc.org, or I believe all of our socials are Awesome Inc. led. And reach out to the team. If you've got an idea, we have an interest form, or I have an idea form for people that might want to be an entrepreneur, and I'll probably be the one to get that and respond. So if you want to hang out with me, feel free. But in the meantime, my email is g@awesomeinc.org. Can't be easier to reach out to. And if I can be a resource in any way, let me know I can help, and also use Daniel for his services. So we'll make that plug twice.
I appreciate it, Garrett. Garrett, thank you so much again for being on the channel. And until next time, see y'all
Until
then.
next time. Thanks, Daniel.
See you.